Hi, my name is Ms.Finster, and tomorrow Donald Trump becomes my president. After arguably the most polarizing election in U.S. history, college campuses throughout the country became the battlegrounds of conservative and liberal ideologies. In defense of racism, misogyny, and homophobia-free campuses, liberal students have protested Trump's policies, while conservatives have rallied behind him, sometimes resulting in hostility.
So I definitely believe that Trump supporters are ridiculed on campus.
Unfortunately, I have to say that they're often shamed and disregarded almost.
They will probably be completely mocked and shut out for being a Trump supporter.
It's unfortunate because they're people too. Obviously, I don't agree with their beliefs at all. But they're definitely coming from somewhere.
So how did the relationship between the left and right become so hostile? Widely discussed throughout the country has been Facebook's red and blue feeds, which show their viewer only what they want to see. Conservatives listen to other conservative voices like Tommy Loren, Gavin McInnes, and Steven Crowder, while liberals listen to other liberals like Trevor Noah, Stephen Colbert, and Seth Meyers. On top of this, it's through these feeds that millennials are getting their entertainment news. And as the election worsened, the result was
President-elect Trump might have the mind of a toddler.
He sounds like a high school senior getting ready for prom.
Goody goo goo, goody goo goo.
The Oval Office, but I don't want to be here. I hate it here.
That's like if kids got together and said, listen, Shayna, you've been a great babysitter, but we took a secret vote to send you home.
He loves the same things that toddlers do. They like building things. They love attention, always grabbing things they're not supposed to.
He gets bored and likes to watch TV, so it is important to minimize that. Hey, I hear ya. I'm dealing with the same issue with my son. He's 9 months old.
You are the most militant herd of triggered crybabies I've ever seen.
When we say all lives matter, we're mocking your infantile wording.
Whiny, indulgent, attention-seeking crybaby.
You are the most creative drama club kids.
Just in case you thought it was unfair for people like me to paint college socialists as whiny children.
That's how toddlers talk. We're speaking your baby language.
Here they are literally whining through the use of a child's play toy.
A bunch of sore losers occupying a space is called a tantrum.
Destroy it like the spoiled toddlers that they are the leftists.
They're in that phase of their evolution. They're 7-year-old boys.
They just can't seem to wrap their little liberal minds around.
Intersectional feminists are as mature as a 13-year-old.
However, there is a difference between the two. As the right has taken power, they've taken on a disciplinary tone.
We're gonna beat this through parenting.
While the leftist comedians are followed with laughs, the right speakers yell and scream, telling others how to live.
You earn it.
You're not allowed to politics.
Stop acting like the only possible motivating factor here that you could fathom is racism.
I said get down from there, Detweiler!
So quit pouting and get to work.
You got something in your eye? Go to the nurse and get it fixed.
Shame on you.
How dare you talk to me like that?
We could be looking at the last day of America.
Society will crumble and Western civilization as we know it will come to an end.
The unloving and intolerant left will stop at nothing, literally nothing, to ensure conservatives don't have a voice on college campuses, as evidenced by the riots at UC Berkeley.
Look what your rotten, no good children are up to now. They've instigated a riot.
Go buy a crappy beat-down car. It's not even close. They don't have to make a new one. Stop driving your Prius. They also handle like crap. It's a white guilt-mobile, and I hate you.
Because it'll have discipline, homework, tests, and more discipline.
All of this would be more or less insignificant if it were not for the fact that we've seen this before. As a result of the stock market crash, the late 20s and 30s saw a sharp drop in the amount of American jobs, which we now know as the Great Depression. Because of the lack of employment opportunities, Mexican Americans and migrants from Mexico saw mass deportation and repatriation. What was repatriation?
Repatriation was a program that was started in the 1920s and early 1930s, and it took place at all different levels of government. It happened at the local level, it happened at the state level, it happened at the federal government, federal level. And it was a program essentially to round up, deport, and return people of Mexican ancestry to Mexico, right? The idea was to send them back for where they came from. A lot of the people who ended up to go to Mexico and as part of this program were actually U.S.-born citizens, and a lot of the children who were sent back were U.S.-born citizens.
Like we see today, it began with an emphasis on criminals.
Zero tolerance for criminal aliens. Zero.
And it was done in the name of protecting the working man from foreign threats.
A great nation must protect its manufacturing, must protect itself from the outside.
The bigger idea was that that we had an economic situation going on. Right? We had the Great Depression of the early 1930s, and also in the 1920s there had been some economic downturn. So there was always looking for like how can we alleviate these problems. And sort of a natural answer became looking at what they called the Mexican problem. And it actually was a way it was talked about, the Mexican problem. And so the idea was to look at Mexicans as sort of the answer to the economic problems. If we only get rid of Mexicans, right, who the idea was that they were living off the dole, that they were asking for support from the government, that if we get rid of this this group that's a liability, then we can have more resources for more deserving white Americans.
I'm going to bring back millions of jobs. Protecting our workers also means reforming our system of legal immigration.
Whether they were U.S.-born citizens or not, it didn't matter. They didn't even think of them as, deserving American citizens of any way. Some of them were encouraged to leave by church groups and community organizations. Others were actually captured in raids. They had these raids that would happen at different community locations in their communities where they knew people would go. They would just round them up and load them up into trucks and take them down to these stations. A lot of them were transported on trains down to the border. I also had the opportunity when I was in graduate school to work with George Sanchez, who wrote this book, Becoming Mexican American, and he writes a lot about the impact of repatriation on Mexicans and Mexican American communities. And so I was able to look at mention the trains because he had lists of the passengers of these trains. And my job, I was one of several researchers, was to input the names in a computer database. And so that was really powerful to read, like these whole families, kind of had this, I told him, it reminded me something like along the lines of the Holocaust, of what happened in Nazi Germany, where these families, they were boarded on trains, and the sense of the train of going to your final destination was very, very powerful.
Despite the fact that repatriation wasn't an effective fix to economic downturn, the similarities continue.
I don't necessarily agree with the harsh forms of deportation that are sort of like emphasized in the media. I believe in more self-deportation, meaning that you make it almost impossible to be an illegal immigrant here in the country.
Then, like now, those who diverged from the Anglo-American way were considered children and in need of disciplinary law and order. Even Mexican stars in Hollywood like Lupe Velez were constantly addressed as amusing children by major magazines. Senator John C. Box tried to push out Mexican farm workers from Texas, claiming that Mexicans were children that needed to be told what to do. Most commonly used was the term peon, which meant a Mexican farm worker who was ignorant and docile to the point of being controllable. Because these similarities between the 1930s anti-immigrant sentiments and today's political atmosphere exist, my question for you is history repeating itself?
We will begin moving them out day one, as soon as I take office, day one.
All these kids unified against the forces of oppression. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, real beautiful. But what's the man up to now? That's what I want to know.
Me too, Spinelli. Me too.